I think that the timing, as we said, is perfect because plastic-free July is just the perfect timing for us to present the evolution of the brand and all the novelties that we're going to share with you all today. Yes, speaking about the history, so Inside Professional was born in 2013, so it's a pretty young professional brand for hair care and professionals. It was born initially in plastic, considering that, considering the approach of sustainability in a more economical way. So having a professional product, a performative product, performance solutions at a very interesting price point. So initially, this was the main name of the brand and the main name of the company. And sustainability has always been in the core of the company itself because we have started as a sustainable company, trying to find solution in formulas and packaging in order to be as much sustainable as possible. But as we all know, the time are constantly changing, the market requests are always changing. So in this let's say short life of Inside Professional, actually we were through two major changing. The first one was in 2018 when we transitioned firstly in recycled PET, so recycled plastic for the bottles and bases of our beauty brand, and recycled PE for the tubes, so polyethylene, which is the squeezable tubes in recycled plastic. So the major change was made out of a consideration regarding LCA, so the life cycle assessment of each formula and each product regarding the packaging, but also the cosmetics inside. Definitely, the recycled PET was the best solution at that time to lower the emission in transportation and lower the emission into the production facility in order to take under control the GHG emissions, let's say, so the ones that are more related to the what we now call climate change, but at that time was just global warming. So we were just all focused on the idea of the temperature rising worldwide, while nowadays we used to think about more widely to climate change, because what we perceive as a global warming is now actually becoming a shifting of environmental changes regarding not only temperature but also environmental happenings all the way. So at that time, the recycled PET was the best solution, as I said, considering the weight, considering how it could contain and preserve the formulas we have, because you may know that we are working with professionals, so we're working with chemistry formulas that can be very low in pH, very high in pH. So we need to have some specific characteristic in our packaging in order to preserve the formulas as the best way possible. So at that time was the best solution. And the second major change, I have to say, is the one that we are overcoming now in these weeks, months, and that will going to be live and for everyone very, very soon, which is the transitioning to glass and aluminum materials for the packaging. So the idea, thank you, the idea was to, keep the formulas that we all love and keep buying, because actually the market worldwide is confirming that Inside Professional has good formulas that work and actually do what they promise. So we wanted to preserve the things that our consumer actually love, but transition the packaging through more sustainable material. And when I say more sustainable material, I want to point out some things that I think that we are going through our time together, because sustainability is a very wide definition, that comes not only in the sustainability of the formula, so the chemicals that are in it, but it's a wider world, let's say, that goes through the environment, goes through society, through economical sustainability. So the definition itself of sustainability is to preserve the things that we know now, the things that we own now for the generations to come in the same way. So a sustainable process is something that we can maintain in the future without, without overdoing our planet, without overdoing our resources, and it's a wider significance compared to the to the regular sustainability that usually consumers are focused on. And this is something that Inside Professional has always had in mind. Being an international brand distributed in so many countries worldwide, we have to face different approaches to sustainability. Not everywhere in the world we have the same approach. I live in Europe myself. I live in Italy, so Europe has quite a strict regulation on sustainability. Otherwise, the United States has different ways on working on sustainability in the processes and the production. And the Asia, like India and China, has all different approaches. So it's very complicated to merge all these different requests of different markets. But actually, at the same time, we are pretty much aware that more than 120 billions of packaging worldwide are produced every year. And being an international brand, being so much distributed worldwide, we know that we put a lot of plastic in the world nowadays each year, because we are lucky enough to have a very strong and committed community of consumers worldwide. But this is not something that we could stand or we could just do lightly. So we wanted to go further inside all the processes in order to really understand what we could do better. Because the idea is that packaging is something that we have to have. We cannot eliminate the packaging completely, but to have it, we wanted to really make the best choice possible without at the same time, counter. I don't know how to say it, without just doing the opposite of what we did before. So the idea is that in 2018, we moved to recycled plastic because at that time, this was the best solution sustainability-wise. But nowadays, regulations and governments and our, common sense also as consumers and people in the world is changing and is starting to implement new notions and new informations. And we want to reevaluate the choices we've made before in order to be to take advantage of that time, to take advantage of the technology that we have now that we didn't have at that time. And so we decided to transition to those materials, which are glass and aluminum mainly.
That is so amazing. And so, what I'm hearing is from the conception of Insight until now, we've been able to use all the amazing practices for sustainability without compromising any of the effectiveness when it comes to beauty professionals using the products inside and the consumers ordering worldwide as well.
Yes, correct. So we try to, when you make choices, it's always a counterbalance. We always try to make the best performative solutions for professionals, both in the care, then in the technical products, without compromising on the formulas. So we try also to find always alternatives which are more sustainable than the most common one, the more also, let's say, economic one, because we all know that for a long time, and this is something that is very close to my heart, in the last 10 years, I think, sustainability has been at a price point which made it a sort of a luxury. You know what I mean? So it's something that people did want to have. So it's like a nice to have addition to your brand identity, because it's something that makes you feel different to the competitor on the market. It makes you feel more advanced compared to competitors on the market. But the urgency of the climate change, but also of the sustainability in a broader approach, is to make the bigger impact possible. And this is going through also economical choices. Do you know what I mean? So this is also how much people can actually afford a sustainable product. And this is something that is very close to my idea of sustainability, because if you keep sustainability as a niche brand, is a niche product, you're not making the change. You know, the real changing are coming when you start open your fan of clientele, open your your consumer, your buying personas, in order to really make an impact and make a change.
That I think is all the exact right ways to make the change that we're all hoping to see here. So let's get into the specifics. What are you changing about the current packaging? I know that you are a color company. I know that you are a back bar company, and I know that you are a direct-to-consumer company when it comes to styling aids and shampoos at home. So what about each one of those are changing when it comes to the packaging?
So actually, the color products, so the coloring creams, the coloring tubes, were already original in aluminum. But it's quite an easy choice, because we know that most of the brands actually have aluminum tubes for coloring, in order to, this is main compatibility with the formulas, just to speak very technically. But as I said at the beginning, actually, when we started, when we had the first restyling of Inside in 2018, we decided to switch to recycled PET based on a life cycle assessment. So based on the calculation, mathematical calculation of the assessment of the impact of the products in the circle of its production, but not considering the waste generated from it. Nowadays, 2024, the scientific community, but most of the also of the consumers and the people involved in the in buying processes of cosmetic products, actually are more and more aware that the waste will be the next huge problem for the human community, let's say, not only the cosmetic one, but actually we are working in this field, so we need to to study this. So actually we needed to implement to our life cycle assessment of the product also a waste management approach. So the idea at that time was to have the eco packaging as best as possible for that time, for the calculations we made. Actually, the formulas and the ingredients, as I said, take the advantage of a very long story of the company on the sustainable market, because actually the company which produced Inside Professional, which is here in Bologna where we're staying now, actually is a company that started 30 years ago already with a sustainable approach, working with, for example, essential oils, working from short field production. So speaking about the formulas and the ingredients, we tried to keep consistent the choice of production, the choice of products and active ingredients that we made before, because this is what actually made Inside Professional an international brand and so much appreciated by the consumers. So at the beginning, by the first first project of Inside, we wanted to implement organic active ingredients. So each range of products, speaking about technical care, all the different care lines, from the treatments to the shampoos and conditioners, all of them includes at least one organic active ingredients, where known more than one. So, but all of them actually include botanical ingredients in general, so phytoceuticals rather than botanical ingredients. And the main thing, I think, one of the things that really differentiates Inside Professional is that all the formulas actually are made out of ozonated water, which is actually a technical, let's say, a chemical process that actually allows you to deterge, to disinfect the water in a way which keeps the formula stable, but at the same time the active ingredients more effective. So we all know that the water is actually one of the main components of cosmetic formulas all the way all around the range. So actually this is an interesting also addition to the formulas itself, because made the active ingredients even more performative. And with this, actually, with this restyling, we also decided to test dermatologically all the care formulas. And which is also something that is interesting for an hair care brand, because we are used to have dermatological tests for skincare, but we are not so close to have it for hair care products. But actually, we all know that hair care products actually comes in contact with the skin. So we wanted to guarantee even more the safety of the formulas, which were already safe before, but we actually wanted to state this for the consumers which may have, for example, sensitivization or different approach, which also comes from harsh chemicals, from the use of harsh chemicals that we actually have in our lives daily. So this is something that we wanted to really implement in the range. And speaking about the actual packaging, just to be short, I know that we have time, I don't want to speak too much, but if you consider that, as I said, I live in Europe, so I usually have European data to state my statements, but actually this is something that can be applied in so many different realities, I'm sure. If you consider recycled plastic, which was our first choice, actually we all know that only less than the 10% of plastic bottles are actually reused in order to create other plastic bottles. The rest are actually burned into creating energy. So, and this is, a process that we all know that comes through microplastic in the air pollution, sea pollution, and so on. But if you consider the glass, the more than the 67% of glass bottles are actually recycled in order to make new glass bottles. And the glass that we decided to use is an amber glass. I would lie if I would say it's an aesthetic decision. Actually, it's forced to the conservation of the product, but it's also very nice to look at. It's very nice looking. But the amber glass is actually out of recycled glass. So the idea was to implement this recyclability, to close the loop of the use of the products, because most of the emission, most of the pollution we actually create as a company, because we know that we create pollution as a company, it's out of our control. It's out of our control because it's related to the use of the products. So the least that we could do was actually to try to close the loop regarding the packaging.
That is so awesome. I want to get to the waste aspect in just a second, but it's funny that you should mention the amber bottles, because I don't know that a lot of people understand that ultraviolet radiation from our sun can actually go through clear glass bottles and change the formulations. And if we have a product that's supposed to work one way, and it is tampered in terms of environmental factors like the UV radiation, it can actually make it work in a completely different way. So I love that you brought that up. It's something that I don't think a lot of people can understand, but we're sharing all the knowledge here with our green beauty community members. But with the environmental impact regarding waste, I know that Insight is doing such a phenomenal job at managing their carbon footprint, which is different than the climate shadow. And I think you all are doing a great job at minimizing your climate shadow, which is the look at everything combined together. But specifically about the carbon footprint, what is Insight's mission in reducing their footprint?
Okay, so this is a very technical, difficult question. Considering gas emissions, the ones that we all call GHG, greenhouse gases, it's actually, can I say something not so popular? It's quite closing your side. You know what I mean? Because GHG emissions are just one single part of all the process. So I always say to myself, you're not a good marketing because you're so sincere speaking truth. But actually, it's something that it comes to my heart. We all produce CO2 emissions just by being here, just by communicating through the ocean, and just by producing products that someone's buy on the other side of the planet. This is something that we have to face. It's something that we all know that consumers usually do not consider, but this is the impact that we have. So definitely it's something that we all need to consider, and we all need to widen our sight and open our eyes regarding the fact that just being alive we actually have emissions on our heads. So how we measure and how we offset the carbon footprint of the company. So we have a company on our back, which is, very strong on the market and with a high history of, as I said before, sustainability. So we started measuring the CO2 emissions using, I think European, but actually applicable everywhere, ISO law, which is the 14064. It's actually an ISO measurement that we actually apply inside the company in order to really measure the CO2 emissions inside the entire cycle of production, not only of inside, but of the company itself. And the categories that are included in this calculation includes, for example, direct emissions of people coming by car at the office. So not later than the last week, we were asked to file a file for the sustainability office to state our cars, if they were, electrical or hybrid cars, how long does it take to come to the job, all the information regarding, for example, how the people is coming to the company to work. Or, for example, how we change the climate inside the rooms, the AC during the summer or the heating control during the winter, the gas emissions related to the company itself. And this is just direct emissions. And this is something that we can actually control. But the majority of the emissions are actually non-direct emissions. And these ones include the electric energy that we buy. We are committed to buy only sustainable and renewable electric energy. The transportation, this is a direct emission that we can control. As I said, Inside Professional is an international brand. So we need to consider that we have to ship or to air freight our products worldwide. And this is something that we can calculate and control. But we have so many non-direct emissions regarding, we buy the raw materials, for example, for our formulas, and we can control actually the chain of production in order to choose only suppliers that actually can state these emissions or can demonstrate their impact on lowering their emissions, because we cannot eliminate them. But mainly the non-direct emissions that we can actually calculate but are outside our control, surprisingly, are related to the use of the product. The idea, this is something that was shocking to me when I arrived in this company and I had my first training regarding the sustainability approach of the company, because I didn't think about it, but we produce mainly products that need to be washed away. And when you heat the water and you use the water to wash your hair, this is where the main impact on emissions happens. And actually, it's something that it's difficult to control because it's strictly related to the comfort of the clients in the salons. Nobody wants to wash their hair with cold water, but in this case, we would lower the emission by the 80%. So this is something really surprising to me, but actually makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately, this is something that it's not under direct control of the company. So we actually, We actually only work directly on the emissions we can control, and then the rest of the process, we try to do things like the ones we are doing today, to share knowledge and share points of view in order to make the consumers understand how much of the impact on the emission actually is on their own responsibility, if you want to say that. So on the points we can actually control, so the direct emission from the company, we actually use solar panels, as I said. We only buy electric energy that we can state it's sustainable and from sustainable sources. But on the direct emission related to the company itself, where I'm staying in this moment, actually, and for the transportation also, we try to offset the carbon footprint. So how is working the offsetting of the carbon footprint? So we calculate the emissions related to the company and to the transportation, and we actually buy credits from international banks of credits in order to compensate the CO2 production, the CO2 emission, working with global projects that actually work strictly in a sustainable way or to increase sustainable processes worldwide. So we actually, how to say, it's like a sponsorship, of sustainable processes. And actually we have at the moment active two different projects. One it's in India, in which we compensate the emissions related to the use of sustainable palm oil. And the other one is in Ukraine, in which we actually sustain a project of, I don't know to say sustainability, but actually we are working with a project that helps to make sustainable the mining processes of carbon in order to create electric energy. So in order to create new renewable sources of energy. So these are the two different projects that we have active at the moment, but they are constantly changing, in order to be as possible wider also in the approach, as I said before.
I love that, Benedetta. And just completing that circle when it comes to the climate shadow, which is all of our impacts, including, the carbon emissions. When I broadcast, when we do these Green Beauty Community Lives, I actually have solar panels on my house with to provide renewable energy that I'm using, and then I can also sell those credits that people
Correct.
and companies like Insight can buy up. That way, even if they might not have complete zero net emissions, they can offset that with other people who are producing clean energy in the fight for sustainability too. So
Correct.
that's the hairdresser, the consumer, and the company and the manufacturer all working together to reduce our impact on climate change and be as environmentally friendly as possible.
Correct. This is the closing the loop, as I was saying before. Every participant of this loop is actually an active part of the loop itself. So everybody needs to make its own small part, small or big that it is. But for me, working, speaking for a company, unfortunately, the energy we are actually able to produce is not enough for the need of the company itself, because you can imagine, the production facility, it's huge in energy income, so unfortunately we are not able, we have no surface enough on the roof of the company to have solar panels to cover entirely our need of energy. But at the same time, you see somebody like you in Italy, I think, actually is selling us its own energy, and it's closing the loop, as I said.
And it's showing that we can all work together to make the world a more beautiful place.
Correct. Totally.
Benedetta, this has been so amazing, and we're going to jump into a short Q&A session here. But I love asking our participants, if there's one thing that I should have asked you, maybe that I didn't think to, what would that be about Insight? What could you share?
It's a question for me.
Yep, for you.
Okay, something that you didn't ask me, that I would ask. I think about the design. Can I say something about the design?
Of course.
because it's something that I'm quite, fond to do and very proud of, because we designed the new bottles of Inside, the new packaging, because the idea was to have an exclusive design in the glass container, which is also, as I said, I always speak about the practical side of switching to glass, but actually there's also a tactile and a very more, consumer friendly approach on this material, because it's very, metallic, and you can really feel it in a cold sensation when you take it. So the design was actually studied not only to be practical and not only to contain and preserve very well the formulas, but also to have a very nice and modern design, which is very, how to say it? It's very narrow on the top, but very rounded on the bottom, in order to really counteract a little bit of feminine and masculine together, because Inside brand is actually very, intersexual. So it's very nice to have, it's very nice to, to always reminding also by the design. And I think a very interesting thing about the new packaging and the new materials that we chose, we tried, as I said at the beginning, to make the best choices possible at the moment. So, for example, having before in the plastic range, we're having the plastic pumps and dispensers. Actually, we switched to recycled plastic pumps and dispenser in the new packaging. And for the labels, we decided to choose ocean labels, which are actually a polymer of plastic that is actually, how to say, collected from the shore in Southeast Asia. So it's also, we tried where we had to stick to plastic, because we decided to keep the plastic in the labels, because, as I said, we are working with professionals with very chemical formulas. So otherwise the labels would discolor or would last less. So we decided to stick to plastic for that reason. But by choosing that, we tried to take the best plastic possible. So I think that the commitment is quite clear, when you cannot decide to switch to recyclable material, to infinite recyclable material. We tried actually to do our best for the technology of this moment. Maybe in 5 years we will meet again and we will see that there is a complete different approach, but we are ready for it.
I think that's a great effort in sustainability, a great effort in balance, and a great effort to make sure that the mission, vision, and values stay sustainable as well. So let me pass it over to Hannah. Did this conversation bring up any questions uh, from your perspective? And it's okay to say no.
Well, I actually really want to address that. I loved kind of the beginning, honestly, of this discussion, because I love that you got into kind of the nitty gritty of like, why are we using certain materials? This is why we kind of have to. Because I think a lot of people sort of jump at the, well, packaging has to be pretty, but they, and obviously usable. But, there's also well, we have to use a certain material because of the products we use. And I think that brings a lot of awareness that maybe there hasn't really been before. So I just loved how you touched on that and touched on it right away. And especially talking about, why using recycled PET, why the change to glass, why is it in amber colored glasses, and its recyclability and how to get those materials. So just, of course, coming from, obviously someone that loves beauty, but is a little bit of I call myself a packaging nerd, or even kind of materials nerd. I just thought I really enjoyed that, and I thought it just opens again the door for more conversation and more transparency and awareness when people are shopping for new products and they're wondering, what is better, or what do I guess, what do I jive with more in terms of, especially the conversation for Plastic Free July, why switching to glass is also another option. So I just want to say I really enjoyed this conversation in general, but I loved your beginning points in the beginning, especially.
I enjoyed it as well, and there was such a wealth of knowledge. And I like to consider myself a pretty good interviewer, so I love it when nobody has a question when I'm done. But just to make sure I'm batting 100, Daniel, did this prompt any questions from your perspective?
Well, I first I want to thank you for coming and joining us because that was very informative and you gave us a lot of information. And I talk to Brian all the time, and so I'm hearing a lot of this stuff. But your delivery was great. I mean, what you guys are doing for the planet, I'm always in awe of hearing about your water treatment and your energy management. And so this kind of really just put it all together in a really good package, and I appreciate you doing that. For me, I guess, how big of a decision was it for the company to decide to take on that test? Because I'm sure a lot of companies are apprehensive just because of the cost, the disruption in supply lines. So how long did you guys think about it? Like how long did it take to make that decision?
Oh, well, this is a very good question. So I arrived at the company last year in May, but actually the project was already in the pipeline from 1 year. So it's 2 years in the making at least. And, we actually pretty soon understood that we needed some wider point of view, as you said, because you cannot imagine how many different regulations and transportation rules and recycle facility are present worldwide, and how differently every country or every group of economical group countries like Europe work in the matter of sustainability. It's like, you cross the border, they are working in a different way. So taking a huge brand as inside with a lot of SKUs, a lot of products, and to consider to transition it all the way all together was a very huge impact for the company. So we understood pretty early that we needed to have some external point of view. So we interviewed ourselves, an international intelligence company, in order to understand how the market would perceive such a change. Because of course, the consumers and the distributors used to a product actually could perceive this change as not advantage, for them. So we actually had a very shocking response from this intelligence company. The market is so ready for that. The people is more and more aware of how much they impact as consumers. Speaking about, a branch of market like cosmetics, which is not one of the, it's I don't know how to say, something that is not an obligation for people, but it's something that they really do take very seriously. So when Hannah was saying, I'm quite, in love with beauty, but and a very packaging freak, the market is actually like you and me. We are all market, we are all packaging freak here. So definitely the response of this company was shocking for us because we were on the right path. So we decided to go further for that. Definitely, the impact of the company, the what we resonated was, okay, we need to do something, we need to evolve in our approach to sustainability, what we can do. And the packaging was actually the first choice because the formulas were already, at the state of the art. Speaking about 2024, I'm not speaking for the future because I am sure that we are doing more and more, chemistry wide. But definitely about the packaging was the first thing to decide, in order, because the data were just so clear to us. We really know really well how many bottles we put on the market every year. So we wanted to lower that when we wanted to work on that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you guys for making the change.
Yeah, we are trying, all together. It's not just for us. It's it's the people it's the community that chooses inside actually that is making the change. So
Definitely. And like we always say, this is an imperfect problem, so there's never going to be a perfect solution, but we all just need to try. So I appreciate you
correct.
guys for trying.
And
Thank
with
you.
all of that said, I am trying. I feel like I'm just over here vibrating in my chair because this is so exciting. And compared to when I first started using Insight, when I met Brian a while ago, and I added that as the number one vegan option, in my salon. To have the conversation that I had then, to fast forward to today, the conversation that we're having now gives me so much hope and almost like a weird sort of positive anxiety about how we can have this conversation again in the next 4 or 5 years and what innovative practices Insight is going to be giving us then. So I'm having a hard time containing myself.
Mike, I'm quite afraid it could be sooner than 5 years.
Music to my ears. That's what I want to hear. But with all of that said, thank you for the Q&A portion, and I want to pass it over to Brian, the general manager of Insight North America. Can you give us any insight on the rollout for these amazing products?
Yeah, well, thank you, Mikey, and thank you, Benedetta, for such a great presentation. It was amazing. It's always good to hear where it all comes from, and you're one of the best at it. And I have to say, the team in Italy has been great putting this together. When we started this journey, I think it was last year we started talking about it, and then in March at Cosmoprof Bologna, the team in Italy put this together. And one of the things, and I'm glad you pointed on that, Benedetta, was the direction, the art direction, and the look of the bottles. But the work you guys put into putting this together, especially from an aesthetic perspective, you certainly made sustainability sexy, I have to say. It looks great. It's an amazing process. But coming back to the rollout, so whenever Italian brands or brands over in Cosmoprof decide they're going to roll something out, they do it at Cosmoprof. And worldwide, that means it's basically going to happen over the next 8 to 12 months, because it obviously takes time to get it over here, to go through the process, to get all our countries aligned. So, for us in the US, we're targeting maybe a soft launch in November with some key accounts, and we're opening the door towards that for some key accounts to kind of test it and get in touch with us, with the major rollout being in January. And even though it's still in the process now of being put together, the reason it takes time is because obviously it's rolling out in the Q4, I think, in Italy and in EU. But, the timeline of getting it over here means that it's going to probably likely happen officially in the new part of the year. That said, we are opening the door for some key accounts to have some processing of getting it into the door in Q4 this year. So with that said, we look forward to getting some feedback from the market. And one thing I will point out with this too, and I think some of the questions I've been having with a lot of vendors and different individuals is, are you afraid of shipping glass? Are you afraid of working with glass? The one thing I will say to that is, in the alcohol world, they've been working with glass for years. High-end perfumity, they've been working with glass in the years. You rarely hear anybody complain or talk about those issues. So I know, in fact, any of those questions will be moot point over time. I think it's important to just keep in mind that, this is a process that we feel we have to do in order to make this work for reaching our goals, and more importantly, what Benedetta touched on was recyclable goals. Glass is and aluminum are the best to achieve that. And so for us, moving both to glass and aluminum are natural. It's a natural process, and we know it's not going to be any issue over here as we start to roll out.
I am so excited to see how that all plays out over the next couple of quarters and into the new year. And so I think that there's such a wealth of information. If anyone's listening or will listen into the future, they have so much to digest already. So I am going to go ahead and start ending our webinar. But before I do that, Brian, let me know where we can find you if anyone has any questions about Insight North America.
Yeah, the best place to find us is on our website, insightprofessionalna.com. With that, you can go into the pro channel if you're a professional and definitely set up an account. You can also do that through Instagram, which is insightprofessional.na, or you can go to our official page in Italy and they will get information to us at Insight Professional Official on Instagram. So we're all aligned very well. Most people have started out going towards Italy and then it comes back to us, or the other way around.
Awesome. Benedetta, if anyone wants to connect with you, where can we find you?
Well, the same actually through the website. Definitely, we have very nice digital girls that will forward all the questions from me, from everyone, worldwide to me, if it's related to the products, and also from Brian, definitely. If if the North American websites do, he will forward me every question, and I will be more than happy then to clarify all the information that maybe we were missing, in this little time we share together.
Awesome. The website, I go there frequently, so I absolutely love being in contact with Insight. And for those who don't know, another thing, Insight has been so gracious to accommodate our affiliate links to help reduce those carbon footprints that we, have to go pick up or ship directly to us and then sell to our consumers. So you can find me at Metro Mikey on all platforms. And I have a link in my Instagram bio if you, as a consumer or a beauty professional, want to order your Insight through there as well. Hannah, where can we find you?
You can find me at Salon Environment, Salon Environment without the E, one word, and you can find me anywhere under that name: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, I probably have it.
And for anyone wondering, the E in Hannah's name, I ended up in my name, so I took that E right from there. Daniel, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram under the Salon Chair guys, under the Green Beauty Community, under Naya's dad. So either one. And please feel free to reach out and let us know what you thought about this episode. It was really good having you guys, and I appreciate your time. This is probably a little unprofessional, but every time you ask me that question, I have to fight myself from saying you could find me in the club. Like, I just think about a 50 Cent song every time. So
for Clubhouse, just to be clear.
Yeah, Clubhouse. You can find me in the Clubhouse. There you go.
That's going to be our unofficial song of the GBC.
I know, right? But thank you. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
And if you haven't registered, please go to thegreenbeautycommunity.com and set up your account. There's forums, and this webinar will be hosted along with all the other webinars. And you can also gain access to our Green Beauty Community Guidebook. That is our free resource detailing everything that we have been able to put together so far about how any salon or beauty professional can become more green, eco-friendly, and sustainable today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you at our next Green Beauty Community webinar. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.